Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Global Citizens. My name is Kelvin. I am the show's host, and of course, I am also its creator. So, my guest for today is actually a person who I'm really interested to hear more about because she actually followed a lot of my content on my Instagram, and it's we actually met up there, and I learned that she actually educate culture through games. So, my guest for today is Miss Lucy Fogarty, an intercultural trainer, coach, and psychotherapist. So, as an intercultural trainer, she has worked with people of all levels, delivered and designed programs for over a decade for expatriates, business people, including top management, junior executive, and their families that's relocating to countries such as UK, US, Japan, Hong Kong, Brazil, the Czech Republic, and two countries that actually has a personal attachment to myself, which is Singapore and the good old Ireland. So Lucy is also the founder of Culture Buff Games, an EdTech company that leverages the power of visual storytelling and gamification to help teach adults and students about foreign cultures in a way that is fun and engaging by emphasizing problem solving and practical application of cultural knowledge. So without further ado, I'll pass the spotlight back to Lucy. Lucy, how are you?
Very good. Delighted to be on our show and to be here today.
Thank you. All right. For those of you who is watching this for the very first time, Global Citizens is an intercultural live stream that is done weekly. The main purpose is to firstly advocating third culture kids such as myself. And yeah, I'm a little bit biased on that, but this is my show anyway, so you can complain about it. So other than that, I actually want to represent all kinds of intercultural communities so that people understand that this is not an extended vacation. It's not a life in a holiday spot that is continuous every 24/7. Because there's a lot of challenges, especially in trying to ingratiate one into a community whereby you have to change who you are, how you speak, or even sometimes there are those who actually change how they look just to fit in the community to actually realize the difference of what it is. So, without further ado, I'm actually going to pass the spotlight back to Lucy. So, Lucy, do you mind please sharing with us your intercultural journey? Because before we are live, I actually hear a lot of things that is really that I wouldn't have expected. So, take it away, please.
Okay. I was born right up in Ireland, and at that time, Ireland was pretty homogeneous. I decided to study international marketing and Japanese at university, and I went to Japan as a foreign exchange student. I spent a year in Japan, and I really enjoyed that. And after I graduated, I wanted to go to Japan. So subsequently, I lived and worked in Japan for 10 years. So that was an amazing experience. And then I moved to the UK. I did a MA in psychotherapy and counseling. And subsequently, I got into the intercultural training field. And for the last over 10 years, I've been working as an intercultural trainer, working with expats relocating to various countries, working with business people, working with specific cultures, and also then working with teens and with from young kids as well. And then I guess on and off, then I've been spending time. I spent a little bit of time in Brazil and also in India. I had an interest in social dance in Brazilian Zouk Lambada, and I used to go to Brazil fairly frequently to attend dance congresses. And then more recently, I established Culture Buff Games, and I've been spending more time in India because my IT team is based out of India. So I've been spending time in Hyderabad in India. So that's my sort of experience, my journey in a nutshell.
Okay. I would love to hear if you can still speak Japanese later on, but maybe I will just keep it at the end. All right. Okay. So this is something that I like to ask my guests nowadays who actually has experienced this intercultural life here. So where is home to you now? Is it still in Ireland or has she been overtaken by UK or any of the other places that you have grown up, that you have actually experienced, such as Japan?
Okay. Yes, a home and belonging, I think sometimes is a big question for people who move around and live in different countries. I was born and brought up in Ireland, so I spent most of my life in Ireland, and now actually I've spent more of my life outside of Ireland. So yes, I am Irish, but I've spent really over half of my life, living in the UK and living in Japan. And I think for me, home is actually more of an internal thing. It's more about being okay about wherever I am, and rather than trying to sort of fit in sort of externally. So I try and focus more on being more. I think of it more as an internal sort of thing, and that kind of works for me, so to speak.
Just a question: are you actually wearing green to show your pride as an Irish?
No, it was kind of I guess it's serendipity.
Well, okay, I did not plan that question. Guys. Oh, okay. We actually have a from Mr. Bernard J. Soloso here. International Irish. Japan is nice. It's like an Englishman in New York. Lovely. Okay. Well, I'll definitely leave a shout out for you, Mr. Bernard. Okay, Lucy. So, I actually want to ask though, have you encountered there's a term? Well, it's actually an English term, but have you ever encountered revelation? So, one of the thing for myself, I grew up in this intercultural life. For yourself, this is something you encountered maybe in your before you entered your early adulthood. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
have you encountered a revelation, something that makes you question your perspective and how you see things? Because one of the things that growing up multicultural is that sometimes you realize a certain custom in where you're from just doesn't make sense. Is that you start questioning things around, and people may find you strange because of it, but you believe that this is something worth fighting for. So, have you ever encountered this kind of situation for yourself?
I think for me, I mean, going from Ireland at the time, as I say, it was quite homogeneous. I mean, Ireland has changed within the last, 25 years. I mean, there's been a huge influx of immigrants. Historically, Ireland was a country of immigration. But when I grew up, it was pretty homogeneous. So, I sought out something different by, studying Japanese. Going to Japan was a big culture shock for me. I mean, it was like being thrown in the deep end. It's just so different from Ireland. And yeah, it really kind of, you're confronted with a culture where people have very different values, and it kind of that manifests itself into very different sort of behavior. What maybe 1920, going to Japan was just that. Was that I think was a huge experience.
Do you mind telling with us now? This is actually how I actually got to know you and why I actually invited you. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit more about Culture Buff Games? Because this is your current main project. How did the idea came about from it?
Yeah, so I was inspired to do games because I wanted to teach culture in a way that was more fun and engaging. I think young people nowadays have kind of shorter attention spans. Um,
Yeah.
and I also am I'm coming more from a practitioner perspective. I've been maybe working more with sort of business people and expats relocating countries. So I was very much interested in practical application of cultural knowledge. And I also want to integrate psychological skills and cultural training. And by creating these games where you're working with visual cultural scenarios, you could actually work in real time. You could work, I suppose, in real time, helping people understand a culture, but then also working with things like their openness, their tolerance, their resilience. Because in real time, you get a real time response from somebody. So I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to try and create games that would help people understand culture in a very practical sort of way.
I see, I see, I see. Okay. Actually, just want to ask though, with regards to this, is like, how do you actually manage it? Because you would have a team. Your IT team is in India and Hyderabad,
Yes.
and
Yes.
for yourself, you approach things from the perspective of an intercultural trainer, whereas your side would have focused it more on as a programmer. How do you balance it up? And also, in terms of application, like for example, some of the stuff that I've seen from culture buff games is like
Mm-hmm.
one of the focus is, for example, is on China, is on India's culture. So how do you feel the application has come across? Is because there are certain things that you people learn about culture through trial and error, but there are
Mm-hmm.
certain things that you can just tell them directly, please avoid this. If not, you might, if you say something like this, or you said something inappropriate, or you say a conversation like this, it might lead to the loss of your business.
Mm.
So, do you mind sharing with us a little bit more on that?
Culture is not based on absolute truth. It's based on values or value ideals. Because when you go to a culture, you're having a specific experience. When you go to China, you're experiencing China. In the intercultural training field, people tend to focus on the generic quite a lot. And there's a strong focus in academia on theory, on models, and so on. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to teach people about culture via real cultural scenarios, and then work with their response to that. I guess, yeah, I just wanted to do something different, I guess. Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. I get where you're coming from because when I created Global Citizens, one of the things that I don't like is like what you said. People tend to focus more on academia, on in the theory, not in the
Mm,
real life application to it, not in the actual story to it. Is
mm,
because the format that I use now is like a typical people having a conversation. It's just like there's just a camera now that is filming it and then streaming it live. So
mm-hmm,
I can relate to that to an extent. And one of the things that I also wanted is to let people see that we are an actual humans. So I think this is something that Culture Buff Games has actually also would have encountered in a sense. So what
mm-hmm.
are actually the challenges though of working with visual storytelling in cultural training or in using culture buff games?
So what are some of the challenges?
Yeah.
Well, I guess um, well, I suppose you're also working with a person's response in real time. So that's actually an advantage and a challenge as well. Because some people we also work with discomfort. So some people could look at an image and be triggered by something, and we can work with that. So it's in the intercultural training field, people tend to be concerned about safetyism, keeping everything safe. But sometimes real learning comes through some discomfort when we're challenged. When you go to a foreign culture, you're going to get your buttons pushed. You're coming from one culture, you have your set of values. You go to another culture, there's a different set of values. Inevitably, you're going to get your buttons pushed at some point. And I think there's a kind of a culture of safetyism. And I'm saying actually, because I'm coming from a background as a psychotherapist, I think it's okay to work with discomfort. But I guess you have to be, it's not, you have to be, I guess, let the clients know that we're going to push your buttons, and you may feel challenged, but that's okay. I want you to step back and think about, oh, I don't like this. Why is that? Um, so I think that's a challenge, but it's also an advantage as well.
Okay, okay. Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. The
Okay,
other
so
thing, one other challenge that comes to mind as well, I guess, when you're using games or gamification, you're often dealing with scoring. And I guess some people like the perfect score. So they're very perfectionistic. So that's
w-
not a cultural issue. Well, it can be cultural, and it also is psychological as well. So sometimes we have to give people permission to make mistakes. I mean, it's how you set it up. You're telling people, okay, we're going to learn to trial and error. I don't expect you to get everything right. It's okay. not to get everything right. When you go to a culture, you're not going to get everything right. But, and the whole point of doing a culture training is to give you a head start. But when you get out and experience life, you will get something wrong. But hopefully, you'll be able to get back on course again, so to speak.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, okay. Earlier, just to piggyback a little bit on what you said on getting back on course, yeah. Have you ever encountered
Mhm.
anything that, in a sense, could be fatal to what project you are doing because of cultural misunderstanding, or because at that time maybe you just didn't know that you have done something wrong, and then you just proceeded to doing it. But the thing is that maybe the locals has actually taken offense to it.
Well, not yet.
Oh, thank God.
uh, not yet. It's Yeah, I mean, I guess it's how you facilitate it and how you explain it. I mean, a lot of the time I'm reflecting something that you can see in real life, so I'm not showing you anything that you wouldn't actually experience. And then the
Right.
question mark then is there's a question mark then over the person's openness. The thing is, I'm working with openness and tolerance and resilience, and of course, that's I mean, that can be challenging for some people.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. I see. Okay, so I actually want to get back to the games a bit, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So, because earlier you mentioned why you started with Culture Buff Games is because the younger people, or I don't know if it's within my generation yet or after my generation, so I'm not going to take
Yes.
offense to it,
Mm-hmm.
has a very short attention span. How do you think that by using games as a medium to be an intercultural training outlet, be applicable to people of all ages, because you've also worked with executives who would be relocating to a new country. They would want to learn how to accept the custom a little bit more, because if they didn't do well, then this is going to be affecting their career. So how do you think that games has also been applicable to them, because there may be those who are of older ages who might
Yeah.
not be too accepting of using a game to learn. They would want to do it in a much more professional settings.
Yeah. Um, the thing is, I mean, often the content we could relay is actually the same. I mean, I can give an example verbally, but I can show you that example with a visual story. So it might be the same content, but I'm just presenting it differently. And you're right. I mean, culture trainers, of course, have to decide what is suitable for your clients depending on who you're working with. So, I'm not saying that you know, uh, you as culture trainers decide again what they feel is appropriate tool for their clients or for whatever the purpose of the training is. But I do think for younger people, um, I think they're used to game-like concepts. A lot of things are being gamified nowadays, and games kind of gets people involved, gets them engaged, and increases it does increase participation, engagement, and training. And the other thing too, a lot of training now is taking place virtually. It is far more difficult to get engagement virtually than it is face to face. And so games can be really helpful with that. Um, yeah, so it's engagement, it's participation in learning. I think is probably, and then for some people, it's more fun. They like learning. Some people like learning to real examples. There's that as well. But of course, ultimately, sometimes in group situations, it's difficult to please everybody because different people like different things. So that's the challenge of working in groups as opposed to one-to-one, where you can customize for the client.
I see, I see, I see. Okay, okay. Earlier you mentioned also on a little on how the world is becoming relying more on virtual requirement, yeah, and it's
Mm.
actually a lot harder to get that interaction out of them. So, what sorts of trend though do you see in the intercultural learning and training field? Because now we are in an era of digital reliance, because a lot of throughout the pandemic, a lot of companies have need to learn that we need to rely on technology, because we can't even work. And not only that, there are those who actually realize that there are some unique advantages to it. Like for example, there's one of my past clients. I've actually realized that there used to be a saying: if you don't learn to make money while you are sleeping, then you'll never stop working. Now that they realize, oh, there's actually a way to do it. I actually can hire a remote team with a different time zone as myself, and then they can work while during my time I'm asleep. So
Mhm.
this is of course an advantage for them, but there are also some disadvantages. Like for example, we only have a face-to-face meeting.
Mhm.
We can't learn the body cues. We can't really learn. And even as an intercultural area, there are times that we realize that we some of the practice that we use is not easily as applicable when you only have a facial interaction. So yeah, I'll pass the spotlight back to you on this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think COVID-19 has done a lot to help the digitization of education, because education has been kind of, in general, I mean, in not just intercultural training, has been a bit of a laggard um, in the kind of adoption of digitization. And I think it has created a new shift to people now as are actually more comfortable working virtually. So I think going forward, I think more cultural training will be done virtually, but it's kind of been broken down now into smaller chunks. I mean, normally you would do a one to one or whatever, a full day face to face training, but virtual training tends to be broken down into smaller chunks. Whether 2 half days or 2 hour sessions. And then I think also then I guess a lot of you have to also adapt material too. I think for virtual working as well. So people are trying to come up with more creative ways of trying to engage people virtually, because I do think it is more difficult to keep people's attention span for a longer virtually than it is face to face. I mean, I used to work as well on a counseling helpline. Sort of years ago, was when I was training as a psychotherapist, and the same thing with counseling. Clients sometimes had choices of face-to-face counseling versus telephone counseling, and of course, people took face-to-face counseling more seriously, and they did not drop out as much. They tended to stay the course, but people would um, often would drop out quicker, would discontinue the telephone counseling, so they didn't somehow take it as seriously. Um, and then there's other aspects of it too. Sometimes people would disclose more, over a telephone than they would face to face. So it was just a different. Clients of trainees often treated it kind of differently, I think, as well. So there's I guess yeah, it has a different impact, I guess.
I see. Okay, okay.
The, the other thing I would say is that's just generally about cultural training. And the other thing I would say is working virtually. I mean, going forward, I think in the intercultural training field, I think there's certainly if you're working virtually, there's a space for working using online games. Perhaps working maybe with animations. I know one cultural trainer in Spain works with video games with students. So there's also, we have to kind of think of more creative ways of engaging people virtually, and also then the challenge of using breakout rooms and so on, and using that effectively.
Hmm. Could you please help me get in touch with an intercultural trainer? That could be a
Yes,
new episode. Okay, that could be a new
yes.
episode
Alina's
idea
written
for
a
me.
book on video games. Yeah, I'll certainly give you her details.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, all right. So, okay, when I first started this show, my very first, the first time I'm interviewed outside, I became the guest. Sorry. I actually put in my profile that I want to have a voice that could represent the 195 nation under the United Nations Charter.
Hmm.
So currently for culture buff games though, what do you hope to see in her long term prospect for it?
Yes, I would like to. I mean, I'm hoping to raise money, and I want to create concepts for different game concepts for different countries and different cultural concepts. So I'm hoping to expand the range of countries for the existing games, but also to develop new cultural concepts. That is my plan. I want to make it, a much bigger sort of idea.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. All right, then. I actually only have one more question for you, and it's actually a two-parter. So the first one, I always like to end my show with gratitude.
Hmm.
So I want to ask you is, what do you feel has been the biggest blessing as a in living this intercultural life? That's one. And
Hmm.
two, if there's somebody who could be interested on pursuing a lifestyle that you are doing, or as the
Hmm.
career that you're doing as an intercultural trainer, a psychotherapist, or as maybe somebody who develop games. Maybe there's somebody who is watching this who, oh, by the way, my editor is in video games design. So if case there's a future career, please contact him for that. Which I'm
Hmm.
giving you a spotlight here. Okay, other than that, if let's say they are interested to create an EdTech game or something related to it, what would you tell them?
Okay. First of all, I guess you asked me. I guess what was the biggest blessing? Well, I guess it's really about learning about oneself via other cultures. Um, so I think sometimes we're attracted to different cultures at different periods in our life, and I think by exploring the culture, you also like developing a part of yourself. Um, so I guess this is a continuous kind of journey of kind of learning and sort of ongoing kind of personal development. So I think that's I guess one of the blessings. Um, and it also comes with challenges as well. But sometimes too, that's where you that's also where some of the real growth happens as well. So it's not all fun. Sometimes it would be challenging, and but that's sometimes where there's opportunity for great growth.
No, it's not fun at all. It's not fun at all. Trust me.
Okay, and then I guess the second part of the question. What if you could? What was the
Oh
second
yes.
part of the?
Sorry. If somebody who could be interested to be an intercultural trainer or as a psychotherapist, or they could be interested in creating their own edtech, though, do you have any advice for them?
Well, yeah, I think you have to follow your instincts, and yeah, it's more you have to find out what resonates with you, and you have to kind of follow those instincts. I think that's important. You kind of have to create your own path if you want to do something truly unique. I think that's it. So it's really more understanding yourself and yeah, I mean, following, I guess do what appeals to you, and in the process of doing something, I guess something will can emerge. I mean, nobody really knows what I guess what the future is, but you kind of have to create your own future in a sense. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. All right then. That's actually all the questions I have. So I actually want to end this is by giving you guys some giveaways from Lucy herself. So you can get your free interactive games at culturebuffgames.com. The website's written here. It's actually on my description box. Do check it out. And I know that we all can't travel yet, or at least now there are certain countries that's still opening up, but it's not 100% yet. But you can earn yourself an Airbnb travel credit located at the description box. Or if you're interested, do check out StreamYard. This is the software that I've been using for 2 years. Even though there are certain times that it can be a little bit of a headache, but it has been really reliable thus far. So other than that, I just want to thank Mr. Puji, who actually live a life. Thank you so much, buddy. And Mr. Bernard J. Solosa here. My apologies if I mispronounce your name. I hope I said it correctly. So let me try that again. Bernard J. Solosa. So I hope I've said it correctly. Last but not least, I definitely want to thank Lucy for making the time to come here today. Lucy, anything else you want to end with?
Not really, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. And, hopefully we can speak at some point in the future as well when Culture of Games is a much bigger platform. And so we, I look forward to following you on Instagram.
Thank you, thank you. So this is the end of episode 103 of Global Citizens, educating cultures through games. If you want to know a little bit more about what Lucy is doing, do check out the description box. I've also attached all her social links. So with that, do have a good rest, everybody, and enjoy your weekend. Or if you are just going to enter your weekend, enjoy your Saturday. Do take care. Bye bye.